Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pada Padme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhu Muhu. Taking shelter at the loving feet of Sarada Devi, our universal mother, and Sri Ramakrishna, world teacher, I salute them repeatedly again and again. So I mentioned a different format. So Jean, if you're ready, you can read your passage and then your questions.
Okay, thank you, Swami Ji. Hello, everyone. This week I've taken an extract from the book Sri Sarada Devi and Her Divine Play by Swami Purnananda, and it starts at page 52. There is a saying, gossip spreads faster than the gospel. In the absence of any word from her husband, Sarada became a victim of terrible village gossip. Gossip breaks hearts and ruins lives. Its victims are helpless, and it causes innocent people to pass sleepless nights and makes them cry into their pillows. Reports came from Dakshineswar that Ramakrishna had gone completely insane and that he wandered around naked, crying to the Divine Mother. The villagers mistook Ramakrishna's God-intoxicated state for insanity. At the bathing ghat, the village women chattered and gossiped. One woman pointed at Sarada and said, "There is a madman's wife." Another woman added with mock sympathy in reference to Sarada's mother, "Ah, she has married her daughter to a lunatic. How sad." There is a saying, rumour has 1,000 tongues. Even at home, Sarada had no peace. She heard her mother lament, "I have married my daughter to a madman. It is as if I have thrown her into deep water with her hands and feet tied." Sarada was stung by these remarks and avoided people as much as she could. She found relief in keeping herself busy with household duties day and night. When it was unbearable to be at home, she visited her Aunt Banu, a widow who lived nearby and was very loving and sympathetic. This woman had insight and understood the divine personality of Ramakrishna. She once told Sarada's mother, "Your son-in-law is Shiva himself, and Krishna too. You may not understand this now, but you will in the future, mark my words." Referring to this difficult time, Sarada later said, "One must always be busy. Work keeps the body and mind in good shape. During my young days at Jarambati, I was active day and night and did not visit anyone's house. If I ever did, I heard people say, 'Shaima's daughter has been married to a madman.' I avoided people so that I might not hear such remarks." Later, Sarada related to some women devotees her days of suffering during that period. "I was then in Jamrapati. I was a mature young woman. I heard that the master had rubbed his face on the bank of the Ganga and cried, saying, 'Mother, mother, do thou reveal thyself to me.' People could not understand him, so they spread rumours that he had become mad. When I heard this, I was terribly hurt, but out of shame, I could not express my feelings to anyone. Seeing my tearful eyes, only Aunt Banu understood. She would console me, giving me a hug and caressing my head, saying, 'Why do you make yourself miserable listening to gossip? Your husband is Lord Shiva himself. I recognized him in the bridal chamber on the very day of your marriage. Don't worry. You will see one day that very madman will conquer the hearts of all. He is mad in the name of the Divine Mother, and that very mother will make everything all right.' The villagers' ridicule went on unabated. There is a saying, the funeral pyre burns a human being only once, but agony and anxiety burn all the time. Sarada burned with anxiety, constantly doubting her husband's sanity. Again and again she deliberated within herself. Is my husband no longer the same person? People are saying he has become mad. Is this true? If this has indeed happened by the decree of Providence, I should not stay here. I must take care of him. At last her patience reached its limit. She decided to go to Dakshineswar and see for herself. That's the extract I've chosen, Swami. And my question when I read this, what came to me was, have there been other avatars like Sri Ramakrishna, Jesus, and lots others? Have there been other avatars or truly holy people who have been incarcerated in mental institutions or shunned totally and not achieving any recognition at all? Or have truly holy people always been recognized as such? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So here we have to make a distinction between holy people and avatars. Avatar is a very special manifestation. Avatar literally means that one that descends, and the theology of it is that there's a cosmic balancing power somewhere that adjusts things from time to time, from age to age, in which case there will be a very special case. For example, if we take Jesus to be one such avatar, incarnation, how many people will, for the good of humanity, say, hang me on a cross, let me go through unbearable torture, and I surrender my physical life for the good of all humanity? So that's seen to be very extreme. There are people throughout the world who sacrifice their energy for others, but there are very few people who stand in the way and say, take my life in order to rescue another person's life. But this is generally recognized as heroism throughout the entire world, this self-sacrificing attitude. But how many such people will be there? In this same way, every avatar does the same thing, because there's only one reason for them to be born, and that is to dedicate themselves 100%. I've heard the saying in modern times, 110%. I never figured that one out. But it's either 100% or it's not. 100%. In Sri Ramakrishna's case, he dedicates his whole life, having prepared the ground so well. And during that preparation, there's no doubt he went through this period of yearning. And that was seen to be mad. And he was thought to be mad, certainly at that moment in time. So he himself was concerned about it. And when the Bhairavi Brahmani came, his first teacher came, that was his one concern, his one question. Look, I have burning sensations. I have this, I have that. Am I really mad? People say I'm mad. Am I mad? And the reply was today, in essence, well, yes, you're mad. But everyone's mad. Some people are mad for gold. Some people are mad for, lust and greed and food and all kinds of things, for sense things. But you are mad for God. And he was relieved by that, and it was true. So the Bhagavad Gita gives us a very beautiful statement. It tells us that what is day to some is night to the yogi. What is night to the yogi, or what is day to the yogi, is night to others. In other words, when people are sleeping, the yogi stays awake. When people are dozing off till 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, the yogi is up and meditating from 3 or 4 o'clock, say. When people think that satisfaction is in a domesticated life, which is of course very useful, then the yogi finds no particular joy in that necessarily. And the curiosity, of course, of Sri Ramakrishna was he had already taken monastic vows from Totupuri. And so any other normal, so-called normal woman, so the question is extended also to her, because the so-called normal woman would either defriend the husband on the basis of real information, which she didn't have, or believe all the rumors and file for divorce, that kind of approach, and say, well, there's no way I want to live my entire life with a madman and be subject to this very painful gossip. And the text is very graphic. The text tells us how painful this is, how the tongue can whiplash people far more than anything physical. And that wonderful statement, see, that we can be burnt on a funeral pyre once, but the effect of people's tongues and malicious gossip, that goes on for prolonged periods. So suffering on top of suffering made the divinity of those great women who are attached to the Incarnation. I should explain a different kind of theology. The theology of the Avatara, or Incarnation, is that not only does one effect of the cosmic mind come and do its balancing, make its balancing role felt in the world, but comes also with a supporting feminine aspect, and comes also with an energetic feminine aspect, and comes also with a number of other accompaniments. The whole thing comes along in order to assist this cosmic balancing power. And we can never forget, and should never forget, the role that Holy Mother is playing in all of this. So apart from anything else, what makes things extraordinary, the fact that she doesn't defend and doesn't attack and doesn't divorce, her attitude is, if all that they're saying is true, I should be there. I should be there by his side. She takes it as a malady, not as a defect. And that's a wonderful, wonderful showing of the Holy Mother's nature. So those who come are also enduring hardships. And look at the hardships that Holy Mother endures. It's very difficult to understand. When she finally does go to him, by the way, she has to travel something like 104 kilometers on foot, barefoot. It's no surprise that after, say, 2 or 3 days, she has big blisters on her feet. But so anxious is she at the age of 18 to go and be by her husband's side. As we know, this is not a normal kind of marriage or arrangement. And the two are testing each other, both. And of course, she then suffers because her village of Jarambati is riddled with malaria anyway, and she succumbs to a malarial fever on her journey. So it's difficult to understand the tremendous suffering, not just from the gossip, but also from this terrible travel. She has this urge because of the gossip. So the gossip serves a very useful purpose. It stimulates her to go and be by her husband's side. And then when she hears that a group of women are going there, then she asks somebody to mention it to her father, who understands and says, I'll travel with you. So the whole party goes off. And as I say, she succumbed to a fever. They had to stay overnight. And that night she has a vision. So this is an insight into the divinity aspect of this whole drama. And the vision is of a woman, a girl, her age probably, looking like a sister, with dusty feet, black in color. And she comes to soothe the brow. Where are you from? Are you one of the relatives? When she heard she was from Dakshina, so, oh, are you one of our relatives? No, no. But you see, yes, I in the sense, yes, I am your sister. Oh, I want to go to Dakshina, so I want to be with my husband. Yes, it is for him that I've come to you, and I'm looking after him, and I'm there with him in Dakshina, and so on and so forth. And of course, the fever passes. The fever passes, sufficient for her to carry on with the travel. But of course, having arrived there, all her understanding of madman goes. He gets concerned, is the timing for her to come right? And then he insists that she stays. Instead of staying with his mother in the Mahabhat, he puts her in his own room, and he attends to her diet, and he attends to her medical needs until she recovers. And even then, he insists that she stay in his room. So all of this compassion, this great love, she recalls, assures her and her father that not only is this person normal, that is not mad, but is in that realm of supreme compassion and understanding, pure love emanating from him. The same loving tutor that she had 4 years previously when she was in his village, and he spent some time with her, teaching her. And the teaching wasn't complete. He completed the teaching when she had arrived. So there's a divine drama that's being played out. Now, are there holy people who have exhibited this kind of madness from the human point of view? And yes, because we are subject to what psychology calls projections. If we are drunkards, we assume everybody is a drunkard. And so Sri Ramakrishna tells us the story of the holy man who falls down in samadhi by the roadside, and an unemployed lazy person comes and assumes the person is sleeping out of laziness. The drunkard comes and thinks, oh, he's sleeping off a hangover from imbibing alcohol. But it is only the holy man who understands this mystic experience who comes along and takes care of him, understands the state in which he is. And it is only those people who have experienced these mystic states who will truly understand. And it is well known that there are some holy people who deliberately want seclusion and deliberately behave in an abnormal way, abnormal to most people. And don't forget, the greatest mystics and saints will really need to be seen to be eccentrics, either in a mild way or in a radical way. And Ramakrishna was a radical because he had transcended all the various fetters that we deem to be normal, including shame. So as a result, for him to walk around naked is quite normal, because the saint doesn't have any aspect, any identification with the physical, and he has no sense of gender because he's seen the divine self within that has no gender. When Holy Mother was on her pilgrimage, we recall, she went to see a great saint, a great sage who was always naked. And when women hesitated to approach him, he said, I don't know why you're hesitating. See, you're all mothers to me. See? So that whole idea is there. And we would deem this to be absolutely extreme. It was Rabindranath Tagore's father, who knew Sri Ramakrishna, Devanath, and he was quite appalled just because Ramakrishna had his shirt unbuttoned. and was completely oblivious to the way he was dressing, and was not deliberately careless or absent or untidily careless, but his attention was pitched elsewhere. His attention was pitched in the divine always. So that would be something extreme, was seen to be something extreme. And as regards suffering, suffering was taken as a normal way because for two things. Firstly, when we take the pairs of opposites to be just a normal thing. Normal thing means this world, when we look at it properly, is made from uncertainty and made from frustration. And this we just get from our way of looking at matter, looking at the universe. We look at the universe carefully, we'll see these are the two components of it, uncertainty and frustration. I won't go into the physics of it. I will if you wish me to. But that's the conclusion of modern physics. Not accepted by normal, so-called normal people. That means people who have a vision, a physical vision with the eyes, and a feeling from the gut. All the equations in physics don't go along with the gut. They all indicate that this world is only an apparitional world, a world of Maya. And from the very ancient times of the rishis, and from all the mystics of every religion of every age, that is the final conclusion. We won't bother that much with this world, because I cannot simultaneously hold this world and hold that entity that fills it at the same time. This morning when we studied the Upanishads, we took on board the diversity of paths called Shreyas and Prayas, the thing which is preferable and rewarding in its abundance, and Prayas, that which is full of pleasure and has the effect of pain. And that's the path most people choose. So that becomes the normality for most people. And we cannot have these two paths simultaneously. It's like if you go into a forest area and two paths are there, even signposted. It's clear you can't diversify, split up as it were, and go on both paths simultaneously. You have to choose one or the other. And when we look at the whole process, the beginning process in spiritual life of discernment, is a choice between one thing or another. We either have to choose what is good or what is not good. There's no other way of looking at it. So commitment and the level of commitment will be different according to one's different level of spiritual understanding. That means the different level of yearning. Look at this extreme example that Sri Ramakrishna gives. He gives two examples by way of conversation. He says, you see, if you weep for God, you weep for God for 3 days, but let's say 2 days and 3 nights, then you will get a vision. Who wants to do it? And so that's what was being referred to by the gossipers. The gossipers were hearing this man who was weeping, oh mother, oh mother. And when he got the vision, he wanted it constantly. And he persisted until he got it. If you look at the whole of Sri Ramakrishna's sadhana, it is all extreme. And he himself said, if I've done all 16 annas, you may do only 1 or 2. That's okay. You don't have to do the full thing. But he was investigative. He was curious. He wanted to use the laboratory of his own mind and discover firsthand, is this path true? Is that path true? And then he comes to this wonderful conclusion, which is the great, great contribution that this Vedanta philosophy, practical Vedanta philosophy, has for the whole world. And the principle of harmony of religions. All paths are true. Why? Because we declare it? Because we have rationalized it? No. Because he has experienced it firsthand, directly, and come to the same experience, the same conclusion. If you want to put it in psychic terms, he channeled all his energy in one direction, opening up, in yogic terminology, that great sushumna, that area of superconscious mind that reveals progressively the truth, more and more and more, and arrives at a mystic union. The Christian Eastern Orthodox churches really emphasize, more so than the Roman Catholic Church, they emphasize this idea of mystic union. That mystic union is the ultimate goal. And the Patanjali Yoga Sutras tell us that success is speedy for the highly energetic. In other words, whatever you put in, with what intensity you put in, that you'll get out. It's just an energy conservation term. It's just saying what we know already. You take the beginnings of entropy, you can take it from the steam engine, the old steam engine. As a youth, all the engines for trains were all coal-fired. And actually in Africa, not only coal-fired, but also wood-fired. Anyway, whatever fuel you put into the fire, the more you put in, the faster the thing goes, the faster the engine goes, the more steam is generated, the faster the wheels turn. Naturally, therefore, if you give your all to a subject, then you will look like a madman. Now, I'm pretty sure that there are many unknown, unnamed saints who have done this and who have gone through extreme spiritual practices. There's a category in Christianity of saints who sat on huge pillars, and they're recognized as saints today, people who did some extreme tapasya. Imagine here in Ireland now going to Skellig Gardens. Islands battered by the notorious Atlantic weather. Far away from the mainland, not easy to get to. And in those extreme conditions, you practice your spiritual life. Spiritual life means you strengthen your will and you steer your attention in one direction until it yields the truth for you. That's the same in every religion. It's the same for all mankind. And those who have attained the very highest and deepest experiences like this will exhibit this. Now, do we have any exceptions? Many exceptions. But then when we look at their life closely, we'll see they are just as absorbed as those who look to have extreme behavior. Holy Mother is one of those people. Holy Mother teaches us to be normal and yet to be completely absorbed in the divine. And here she mentions how she used to distract her attention from the gossiping, keeping busy, what we call occupational therapy. Keep the mind, if you keep the hands busy, you keep the mind busy. And the best way to keep the mind busy is absorbing it in God. Now imagine now how much of an advantage she had in this sense, that keeping her mind absorbed in her husband Ramakrishna was equivalent to keeping her mind in God. What a beautiful, beautiful arrangement. What a divine arrangement. The Indian tradition pays great respect to the female counterpart of God, what is called Shakti, and that is how Holy Mother is viewed as well. You know, we can say Lakshmi Narayana and not Narayana Lakshmi, the other way around. So we have Sitaram, we have Radha Krishna, we don't have it the other way around. And also, of course, it sounds poetic, sweet, and melodious when the name of the Shakti comes first. So we might be legitimate in saying Sharda Ramakrishna, actually. So I'm reading now from the text that is preceding your particular reading, because it serves as a very, very valuable background to what you've just read. It says, although the life stories of avatars, spiritual consorts, are full of pain and suffering, their love for their husbands shines forth unparalleled. They represent the ideal of womanhood. Their lives were brightened by their love and purity, patience and forbearance, contentment and service, self-control and renunciation, devotion and faith, gratitude and unselfishness, poverty and austerity, sacrifice for humanity, and reliance on God. Who else would sit in cramped and lie and cook in such cramped conditions as Holy Mother had? And I don't think that was the worst conditions. I think there were even worse conditions that she had. So when we see this self-sacrificing, by nature, wives and women seem to be self-sacrificing anyway. Their motherly nature does it. But imagine now the divine aspect of it. They were established in their own greatness, says the text, and glory by virtue of these noble qualities. Then it mentions that before the passage that you read, that from 1867 to 1871, Sharda lived with her parents in Jerambati and continued to serve her relatives. And 4 long years passed, that is, between the age of 14 and 18. And it mentions specifically, though her body was in Jerambati, her mind dwelled on her sweet memories of the Master. And then in contrast to that, all these village gossipers come. And of course, she had grown into a beautiful woman of 18, says this text. But you see, every day she was bombarded with this. But every day she also expected to hear from her husband. But no message came. And sometimes she would say to herself, he was very kind to me during our last meeting. That was 4 years ago. She must have cherished those episodes. How can he ever forget me? In good time, he will of his own accord call me to his side. Look at the divine faith. He'll call me when he's ready. And so let me patiently wait for that holy, happy moment. Now, the passage that you read is there, but if you go further, the passage will say this. It will ask a question while I'm finding it. It will ask a question. We may ask or we may wonder, why didn't Sri Ramakrishna call her to his side? That's a question. And one of the clues goes like this. As Sharda alighted from the boat, she heard the Master say to Hriday, "O Hriday, this is her first visit. I hope the hour is auspicious." The Master's first words, laden with tenderness, were to encourage Sharda to go straight to his room. Her companions waited outside. And then he says, "So you have come. Very good. I am very happy." And then he told someone, spread a mat, try to arrange food, and so on and so forth. And then he discovers he's ill, she's ill, and he looks after her. One can imagine, says the text, what was going on in her mind while lying in her husband's room. And although she was exhausted by the fever and the long journey, she must have been relieved to find that her husband was not insane. And yet, his whole mind was absorbed in the divine. It goes on to say also, interestingly enough, moreover, Sharda must have been apprehensive about how the master would receive her, because she knew that he had taken monastic vows from Thoothukudi in 1864. A monk renounces his family and his wife. So how is it they could live in a married way? She had perhaps expected to be rejected. It's a speculation, it's a reasonable speculation, which would have been unbearable for a devout and faithful wife in normal circumstances. This apprehension disappeared when she found that the master let her sleep in his room and intended to arrange for medical treatment, and overwhelmed by her husband's love, compassion, and kindness, she would have joyfully fell asleep. And with good medical treatment and special diet that he arranged, she recovered within 3 or 4 days. The master himself supervised her medical care and diet. So we can see Ramakrishna on the one side as being triggered into ecstatic trance, and on the other side, the human compassion for another being, which is not only normal, but extraordinarily human, extraordinarily full of human compassion and understanding. So it goes on to ask this question. Ordinary people may wonder why Ramakrishna did not bring his wife to Dakshinaswar earlier. And Sharadananda, who is the author of the biography, the great master, if you translate it into English, in Bengali it's the Lila Prasanga. He says, why did he not bring his wife to Dakshinaswar? Sharadananda explained the situation. Undoubtedly, an ordinary person would have done that is, brought her. But the master was no such person. So he did not behave in that manner. Those who are accustomed to performing every action while depending solely on God at every moment of their lives do not make any plans. When people make plans, their plans are their own and not necessarily in tune with the divine will. So some people have asked me, and many years previously had asked me, so how long are you staying with us? I don't know. I have no plans. For the good of themselves and others, they depend on the assistance of God's cosmic intelligence and wait for a signal rather than resorting to their own limited, puny intellects as we do. In addition, we can say that the master knew through his yogic vision that this was the will of God. And we have to understand where this is coming from, because if an avatara is the descent of the cosmic will and the cosmic mind, the cosmic balancing power coming for that particular purpose, then every part of that thinking and understanding is entrenched and established in the cosmic mind, the universal mind, God's mind, the personal God. Providence, the text says, has its appointed hour for everything. After finishing his sadhanas, his spiritual practices, Ramakrishna waited to share his hard-earned spiritual treasures with his wife. You know, even in ordinary marriage, it should be that the two partners assist each other in spiritual life, not just in physical life or emotional life or family life, but in spiritual life also. Since our only purpose in this life is essentially spiritual. Now, what is in the way, what prevents it for most people is selfishness. And when that selfishness is exaggerated, people have domestic problems. When people are completely selfless and dedicated to the God in each other, the divine in each other, and therefore to each other, then everything goes very smoothly. So Sarada also waited for the right time. When she achieved her maturity to act the next part of her divine drama with her husband, Providence set the stage for this act in the temple garden of Dakshinaswar. She could easily have gone a year before. She could have gone maybe even 2 years before. But she decided, no, the urge, not she decided, she saw the divine, even in the painful experience of the gossip. So these are wonderful, wonderful reflections on this particular incident and series of incidents. So let us see what we can learn. So recently I gave a talk on adversity and how we can see adversity as something like a blessing, if we take it in this way. But it requires us to have a different outlook, to shift our outlook on life, and not to take it as seriously as we do. The greatest antidote for distress and pain is a sense of humor. And if we can apply that in a philosophical way to say that this is the Lord's cosmic dance, and within it, if we take it that way, then we have to dance well, we have to play well, be a good player, because everyone's role in this drama is unique. There are unique talents and abilities, a kind of divine drama that requires you to play your own part, what we call swadharma, your own contribution toward harmony. Like all jigsaw puzzles that fit, where the pieces fit nicely together. All the roles on a stage in a play where each one has their particular function. And without the one, the whole thing doesn't work. So the cosmic mind is directing us in this divine play. And can you imagine those who really understand the drama are these divine beings, and ultimately those holy people who come to that same understanding, who have a close relationship to this cosmic mind that we call God. Thy will be done. That's the section in the Christian prayer that Jesus put out. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, in this material world, in this earth where the drama is, as well as in the realm of the cosmic mind, where the divine will is operating. So you can see how Holy Mother waits patiently and how she manages to neutralize the sting, the pain of all this gossiping by keeping herself busy and avoiding those gossipers. And see, even her mother is saying, is worried, as a mother should be. And so she has to go to a trusted aunt. What does this aunt represent for us? We can see various layers in all these divine dramas. This aunt represents her own inner wisdom. And you see, her aunt is not deluded. It is her aunt who is a spiritual person, somebody of mystic vision, who says, when I first met him, I saw his divinity. He is Krishna. He is Shiva. That's who I saw. That's who he is. So it takes somebody of great insight, of great mystic experience, to understand what is the truth about the person. So that was her understanding. All these other ordinary people, because people who have this ordinary vision, so-called, won't understand it. They'll make these projections. Not only will they do that, but they'll delight in gossip. Local women in a village gathered together, doing the common bathing and washing, looking after children and grandchildren, a small community, the tongues wag, and the gossip is picked up very quickly and very easily. Delighting in this. maybe even knowing that this will come to the ears of Sarada, and also taking some maliciousness in it as well. The mother's, the Divine Mother's own mother is not part of the gossipers, but takes these tales seriously enough for her to make the same kind of comments. So how does the aunt console her? She says, in her own words, this Holy Mother, she would console me, giving me a hug, caressing my head. All of us require that kind of physical comfort from a trusted elder. And caressing my head, see the affection. In other words, empathy and compassion. Why do you make yourself miserable listening to gossip? So she wasn't completely immune to it. She found her resort in this elder. Your husband is Lord Shiva himself. I recognized him in the bridal chamber on the very day of your marriage. Then she assures her, don't worry, you will see one day that very mad man will conquer the hearts of all. How prophetic. Will conquer the hearts of all. He is mad in the name of the Divine Mother. Yeah, I can confirm he's mad in the name of the Divine Mother. And that very mother will make everything right. So looking at things from this perspective serves to neutralize her worries. Will it serve to neutralize all our worries too? We should surely see that these episodes are not there for nothing, not there just as biographical accounts. They're there to teach us something. Because all of this is scripture. Scripture means here is the example of people who are close to the Supreme, close to the Divine, and it is there to share their various experiences comprehensively. That means from the human point of view, from the emotional point of view, and from the divine point of view, where we find our final conclusion. We find all our answers. So when we look at it in a different way, when we revalue things and get a deeper insight into things, when we start seeing this God of the universe everywhere, when we start seeing it in Ramakrishna's way, that Jiva is Shiva, the same thing, that then stimulates us toward activity. And not only does this madman become worshipped everywhere, but his consort, his helper, the one who carries on his mission and his message, the Holy Mother, also is starting to be worshipped worldwide as well. Even mere pictures that people see who have no idea who she is, see something special in her face. Even in clever portraits of her face, painted portraits that become so vivid and so alive that people inquire, who is this woman? I don't know who she is, but I need a picture of her. And so this remarkable woman is spreading the message of her madman husband. And what we discover is that he is more sane than any of us, because he is, in Jesus' word, the truth, the way, and the light. So I hope that answers your question, and I'm not sure if it does. Yeah.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, Swami Ji. Thank you.
These question-answer sessions are really reflections. That means the whole idea that we have discussed can be taken back with you and reflected on. what a useful meditation it is just to think of some of the hardships that the Holy Mother had. When we think how she now walks 104 kilometers to be with her husband at the age of 18, barefoot, and all the blisters and bruises she would have had on her feet, not being used to walking those long distances, and the amount of determination and love she would have had in order to make that journey, and how easily she fell under fever because of the hardships in her own village. And those people who make pilgrimages to Jarambati, not only to feel the specialness of the place, can easily turn the clock back and see how it might have looked before it's developed as it is developed now. And it was a much poorer village than her husband's. It was a much poorer community than Sri Ramakrishna had at Karmapur. So the various hardships, I remember, and I think I said this before, sitting in the afternoon, most people take a rest at so-called siesta time after the lunch. The sun is very hot, but I don't find that conducive to me. So I was just sitting by the tank there where the mother would have bathed and just reflecting on the whole atmosphere of her home village. And I looked in the water. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I happened to look in the water and see a snake writhing in the water and thought, oh my goodness, see, this was the atmosphere along with mosquitoes and other things that Holy Mother would have had. And of course, this is just an example of some of the conditions there, and I'm used to those conditions also in Africa. And so that upbringing. But to all intents and purposes, she grew up as a very happy child, despite the hardships which are relative. Relative means that what is hardship to somebody used to luxury is not hardship for the other person, but certainly not luxurious conditions. Not luxurious conditions and hard work, generally a hard life. And we can see also in the villages, lack of education is typically there, both in Africa and in India and South America, where some element of superstition can arise. So that not only did these village women hear this second-hand report from over 100 kilometers away, through relatives and so on, no doubt, but also didn't understand fully the nature of a spiritual mind, an elevated mind, a mystical mind. But her aunt knew it. And it was because of the aunt's insight that it was revealed. And her faith in that, and her patience, and her forbearance that she had throughout her entire life. So these are just some extra thoughts and beautiful subject for meditation. We'll finish off there then. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.